is the ongoing crisis of xenophobic violence in South Africa. People seizing their neighbors' homes, local businesses looted and burned down by their customers, Africans killing Africans. South Africa is no stranger to xenophobia-fueled attacks. Foreigners and migrants have often been targets of disillusioned mobs angry about inequality and wide-scale unemployment. But this latest wave, taking place mostly in Johannesburg, is having a ripple effect outside of the country, especially in Nigeria. African leaders have been quick to condemn the violence and are hoping that taking action against the South African government will lead to change. Dewa Mavhinga takes a look.
South African streets in ruins. At least 12 people have been killed and dozens of stores destroyed in days of rioting. Most of the businesses here in Pretoria are owned by foreigners, and it's these immigrants that the mobs have targeted. Basil Onegbo is from Nigeria. He's been living in South Africa for 14 years. There's nothing to salvage from his car dealership. His livelihood up in smoke.
There's no brotherly whole love there. We are all one Africa. We are all the same. We are the same blood. We are not, I'm not even, maybe I'm saying, you can say that maybe I'm a white man or this. No, we are the same blood of Africa. You see?
But some locals don't share that opinion. They think foreigners are given preferential treatment and say they're taking jobs that should go to South Africans. There's no evidence to support these claims. But many people are struggling to find work, and the economy is in bad shape. South Africa has narrowly avoided a recession. Last year, the economy grew just 0.8%, and unemployment is at nearly 30%. That's almost 7 million people out of work. Analysts say frustration is fueling myths about foreigners. Politicians have also been accused of scapegoating immigrants to distract from their own failures. South Africa's president has condemned the violence.
No amount of anger and frustration and grievance can justify such acts of wanton destruction and criminality. There can be no excuse for the attacks on the homes and businesses of foreign nationals, just as there can be no excuse whatsoever for xenophobia or any form of intolerance.
But xenophobia in South Africa isn't new. In 2008, at least 62 people were killed when rioters targeted foreign nationals. Again in 2015, non-South Africans were attacked by mobs, with at least 7 killed. And there have been reprisal attacks. South African business owners have been targeted in Nigeria, and there have been protests in Zambia. President Ramaphosa sent envoys to these countries in an effort to ease tensions. Is South Africa in denial about the existence of xenophobia? And what is the government doing to make sure these attacks don't happen again? Dewa Mavhinga, The Newsmakers.
So are foreign nationals being scapegoated for the failures of Ramaphosa's government? And do police and politicians have the means and the will to turn things around? Well, to help try to answer these questions, we're joined from Pretoria by Mbindwane, who's a member of the ruling ANC party. In Durban, South Africa, is Byamungu. Dunia, he's the Secretary General of the African Solidarity Network. And Dewa Mavhinga is in Cambridge. He's the Southern Africa Director at Human Rights Watch. Good to have you all on the program. Let me start with you, Byamungu, Dunia. So President Cyril Ramaphosa apologizing profusely. The special envoys, the diplomats are going out there apologizing not only to the Nigerians, but to the governments and the people of all African countries that have been affected by this. Do you accept that apology?
No, definitely the apology is accepted, but for us, I don't see that the apology was the way to go. is going to apologize to Nigeria, to Zambia, but people have been affected. He left them in South Africa. And the government, it doesn't have any plan to mitigate xenophobia. Going and apologizing in Nigeria without having a plan to fight xenophobia in the country, and while the government is still in denial that this is not a xenophobia, going to Nigeria, to Zambia, to DRC to apologize is not the way to go. That is something that is bluffing the international community. But what we wanted the president to do is to deal with the issue of xenophobia in the country, accept that there is a xenophobia, and then come up with the plan to deal with xenophobia on the grassroots, so we can be able to say xenophobia will never happen again. But going to apologize outside the country and leave the victim here without even speaking to them, he doesn't know even how the victim feel when they are in the country here.
Mbindwane, the government doesn't have any plan to mitigate xenophobia, according to Daniel. What do you think?
I think first we have to acknowledge that this is an emotive issue. And indeed, we've had 2 lives of foreign nationals that were lost in the past 3 weeks. So we need to apologize for that. We need to apologize for the violence that South Africans have perpetrated against foreign nationals in general. So what is at issue is a very complex matter. It's complex in that we must look at the question of xenophobia in a very strategic manner, because what you see is situations that you've seen in Turkey, you've seen in the US, you've seen elsewhere around the world, in Germany and so forth. South Africa is one of the
I'm sorry,
top 3.
but Bo, what are you talking about? I mean, we've not seen anywhere in the world where foreign nationals are having acid and petrol thrown on them, having their homes burnt to the ground, their shops looted at this level for this sustained period of time. We were looking at this story back in 2008 where people were sent into camps to protect them from South Africans, right? So again, you're saying we must be strategic about this, we must look at this holistically, but looking at it strategically and holistically as well, okay, unemployment, inequality, lack of services, that's also the fault of the government. So at every level of analysis, the government's to blame here. Do you accept that?
No. I think it's far more complex than that. Again, if you were to just allow me briefly to lay the foundation for this, you are correct. 2008 saw the spike of these issues. We must understand what was happening in 2008. The global economic meltdown was occurring. We had bigger problems coming out of Zimbabwe, the DRC, which then constrained and got foreign nationals competing with locals in terms of jobs, availability of land.
Okay,
and
so
resources.
What's the excuse in 2019?
The government, however, if I may just, well, it's gotten worse. The economic situation has gotten worse. People are nervous. There is also a general nationalistic phenomenon that is permeating across the globe, what other people may refer to as Trumpism. What we have to understand is South Africa is the only country in Africa that receives foreign nationals in their millions. And sometimes that can be a problem. And also, the manner in which we
Kenya does
integrate,
as well. But I'm sorry, Bo. Kenya does as well. It has tens of thousands of Somali refugees, for example.
It has camps. It's put them in camps that are isolated away from society, the economy, and so forth. South Africa integrates these communities within our fabric of society. But let's pause a little bit and understand that we also have Bangladeshi nationals, Pakistani nationals, and so forth and so forth. It's not just
okay, but that's okay. So, Bo, that's hardly a sobering. It's hardly a sobering detail to say. Well, it's not just Africans, also Bangladeshis, also Pakistanis who are being attacked.
That is why it's complex.
Okay.
That is why it's complex.
Okay, but it's also it shows you how broad.
Then when
certainly, it shows you how broad the otherness is treated here and how broad the brush is in terms of attacking anybody who's not South African. But I want to bring in Dewa Mavhinga. Bo, you're going to get a chance again. I want to bring in Dewa. We're hearing from Bo that this is more complicated than it seems. It's not just South Africans lashing out at outsiders because of economic strife. It's more complicated. Do you accept that, Dewa?
No, I do not. It's a fairly straightforward issue of xenophobic violence that is
Daniel, that's for Dewa.
unmitigated.
Go ahead, Dewa. Daniel, we're going to come to you in a minute. Dewa, go ahead.
Well, yeah, it is violence that is not punished. There is a lack of policing in South Africa, which then breeds impunity, where locals commit horrific acts of violence against foreign nationals with the knowledge that they will get away with it. If you look at 2008, more than 60 people were killed, and yet not a single successful prosecution and conviction to date. And this is the same with 2015 and the latest violence in 2019. There is total impunity. There is no accountability. The police are not doing their job. They are folding their hands. In fact, I would call it institutionalized xenophobia, because the police are complicit by not acting to ensure that the perpetrators are held accountable. And that is the center of the problem in South Africa, that the leadership are not willing to acknowledge the problem and to ensure that the police do their job. And therefore, we have these perpetual cycles of violence.
Let's have a little listen to South Africa's Chief Justice, Mogoeng, who came out quite passionately about the situation. Let's have a listen.
If these hungry people were living next to our white compatriots who are even South Africans, they would be attacking them. What causes people to break into people's houses like this and even kill them for what belongs to them? Is it xenophobia? Is criminality? Where does it come from?
Daniel Byamungu, Dunia. We've heard from the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice is saying, yes, it's bad what's happening, but this is more about hunger and economics and criminality, not necessarily xenophobia. South Africans don't wake up in the morning and go, I hate Zimbabweans, that's why I want to attack them, or any other member of other African countries. It's a reaction to bad things, but it's criminality, not xenophobia. Your reaction to that, Daniel?
I disagree with the Chief Justice, because poverty is not only in South Africa. In all corners of Africa, there's poverty. And poverty can be a justification of burning people and killing people and burning the shop and cars. That can't be a justification. The problem here in South Africa is that the government is in denial since 2008 up to date. Perpetrators of xenophobia, no one ever been convicted and be in prison. So people are taking it is easy. And the government never have any plan to deal with xenophobia on the grassroots level. I'm saying at the ward level, nothing has been done. So xenophobia, let's call it xenophobia. That is his name. Because if we're trying to be defensive and try to protect, we'll never come up with a solution. Try to defend ourselves, and then if we want to eradicate xenophobia, it happened in 2008, we don't have a program at the ward level dealing with it. 2015, we don't have any, government doesn't have any program. 2019, government, the program they have is to apologize and media statement and go to Nigeria. But they are living victims here. So we need to call it what it is and come up with the solution. There's a many commission which have said to deal with the issue of migration and xenophobia. There is a recommendation, but the government can't implement the recommendation.
But Daniel, isn't
like
it?
Here in KwaZulu-Natal,
And I know there's a...
we had the recommendation from the Judge Navi Pillay, which
certainly.
the province, the premier, asked.
Allow me to come in here for a second here.
Those recommendations are not implemented.
I know there's a delay, so this gets a bit awkward sometimes. But Daniel, isn't the mere fact that for the first time the government is sending out envoys, the mere fact that the government is apologizing, the mere fact that the government is treating it as a geopolitical issue, that shows you that they're sweating about this, they're worried, and they want to do something about it. As a first step, aren't you encouraged by that?
No, the first step is not to go to Nigeria, send an envoy. The first step is what is the program, what is the plan which they are doing on the grassroots. Last night, people was attacked. Last night, people were attacked, and the envoy is in Nigeria. We don't know what will happen today. The first step is the government to go on the grassroots, in the ward level, implement program which will fight xenophobia. Because last night, I'm telling you, people were attacked in KwaZulu-Natal, and the envoy is in Nigeria. And the president and the government of it going on TV and media statement is not helping. They need to go to the grassroots where there is a problem and come with the plan, program to address that before they go to Nigeria.
Noted.
That they are trying to protect their interests in terms of business. Going to Nigeria is protecting the interest in terms of business, but it's not helping to fight xenophobia in the country.
Fair point and noted, right? Let's go to Bo Mbindwane. So, Bo, there was a Pew poll conducted in 2018. And this was quite jaw-dropping. I'm sure you're aware of it. So 62% of South Africans viewed immigrants as a burden on South African society and that they take South African jobs and social benefits. Not quite true when you look at it against the facts. 62% said immigration increases or immigrants increase the risk of terrorism. Not true. 61% of South Africans thought that immigrants were more responsible for crimes than other groups. Again, this is fallacious. It's not true. Yet, the majority of South Africans believe this. Bo, if this was a poll of Germans, we would be fearing the return of Nazism, wouldn't we? Why shouldn't we be freaking out and fundamentally worried about how South Africans view foreigners?
I appreciate the study that you quote. I actually read it. I can say a few things about those 3 points. That you're correct. It's rather ridiculous that we should be looking at foreign nationals as a threat to our national security in terms of terrorism, or that the majority of crimes that are committed in the country are perpetuated by foreign nationals. This is not true. However, let us also admit certain issues. Some crimes like human trafficking, drug peddling, and other illegal activities that are most pronounced in local sphere are indeed as a result of illegal or unlawful or undocumented foreign nationals. In South Africa, the study is that out of 4 million foreign nationals we have, only 10% are actually registered and or do have legal status in South Africa. That becomes a problem. It also exacerbates the issue of policing to go negative, because I'm talking now as a former advisor to the Minister of Police. More often than not, we have cash in transit heist, and we've identified time and time and again that perpetuated by foreign nationals. It includes issues of car jacking and so forth, banking crimes.
Okay, so let's ask Dewa.
Card schemas.
Okay,
so
so there are elements. Okay, fair enough.
All
okay,
these
so
things
let's.
are there.
Okay,
but hang on. No, I don't want to leave it there. If you don't mind, because I don't want to appear insensitive.
Okay, so button it there.
Let me button it up quickly. The start of this current wave was as a result of a South African taxi driver stopping a Nigerian national from selling drugs to a school child. The foreign nationals killed that South African taxi driver for trying to stop that crime. So when I say it's complex, I also want to say it's not African to African. They are illegal or illegal
but predominantly,
but
predominantly we have Zimbabweans, Malawians, Mozambicans, Somalis, Nigerians, Congolese, Ethiopians, and some Bangladeshis and Pakistanis and so on. The vast majority you would accept are African nationals, right? That's why some people have termed this Afrophobia. Dewa, would you note the point made by Bo that there are triggers wherein foreigners are involved in crime and that there are a lot of illegal foreigners making things difficult for South African society to handle, to cope with?
Well, that is incorrect. In fact, if you look at the latest wave of violence, it was pre-planned and advertised on social media, on WhatsApp, on Facebook. In fact, it began with a group that was focusing on attacking foreign truck drivers. The local group in Durban, their motto was, foreign truck drivers must fall. Zero tolerance to foreign truck drivers. So it was quite clear it was coordinated and organized. And some of the triggers are the reckless statements by political leaders, including President Ramaphosa, who then begin to use foreign nationals as a scapegoat to blame them for crime and to blame them for drugs, just as Bo was saying about Pretoria. And this then actually encourages those at the community level to commit these abuses because their leaders are saying reckless things without accountability, things that are not factual, but things that can lead to violence that cannot be controlled easily. And in fact, when we talk about South Africa receiving hundreds of thousands or millions of migrants, we need to put it on record that the immigration officials in South Africa have one of the worst records of processing applications for asylum seekers and refugees, which then means that although it receives such a huge number, very few, a negligible amount, actually get documented formally. Many of them then are asked to renew asylum documents every 3 months, and there is rampant, excessive corruption. And so this is what also is feeding into this idea of undocumented migrants. But above it all, the biggest problem has to do with systems that are not in place, with policies that are not working, and with a government that is unwilling to address the challenges facing foreign nationals, and then resulting and leading into tensions which are stoked by political leaders.
Bo, would you accept that there are some people creating a negative atmosphere here? So on the ground level, you have the dehumanizing. Foreigners are called amakwerekwere, they're called all sorts of names to other them, to dehumanize them. But also, we have political leaders who are not making it any better because they tend to also cast aspersions, maybe hang a shadow of guilt over foreigners. Do you accept that this is happening?
Yes. We must accept that there are political leaders who play into the issue of nationalism and the fight for resources and so forth. In particular, the mayor of Johannesburg and the party, the DA, their emphasis on the last elections were mostly about borders in the style that one can call Trumpism. Let me just focus on President Cyril Ramaphosa and why it is that he has a multi-pronged approach to the issue of the attacks on foreigners, be it as a result of xenophobic feelings or as a result of nationalistic feelings or indeed a result of criminality. That is the complex nature of what we are dealing with here. Is correct in that in this past weekend, today even, he is exactly on the ground as my colleague in the panel was demanding. He's on the ground, he's gone to hotspots, he's even visited a South African family of the very taxi driver I referred to, which sparked this issue. As of the issue that has been going on for the past 2 years about the freight transport era in terms of the our trucks, it has absolutely nothing to do with this, but it adds to the complexity of the issue. That issue is a labor relations issue wherein the employers in the area of our province of KwaZulu-Natal have been illegally employing foreign drivers instead of South African drivers
because time is running out.
The rate is
right. So they're cheaper, right? They're cheaper and strategic. Okay, so they're going for illegal drivers because they're cheaper.
So you deal with the same thing.
The
same thing that is being dealt with in the border between Mexico and the US.
And that's one piece of this big puzzle. Hold on, Bo. We have a minute and a half left. Listen, we have a minute and a half left on the program.
Right.
Daniel, people are getting airlifted out of the country. They're going back to their home countries, whether Nigeria or elsewhere, right? What needs to happen?
That's a fallacy.
Well,
That's
people
a
have
fallacy.
left.
That's not.
Hold on. People
No,
have left.
only
People
100
have
people left.
Okay, they
Only
left. It
100
happened.
people.
This is a fact.
People are
Daniel,
moving out.
45
People
seconds
are
left.
still
Hold on,
moving out
Bo.
of African
I need to get to
regions
Daniel here.
to South
Hold on.
Africa.
Bo, we're live. We're going to
Yeah.
crash off air. Daniel, people are going back home. What needs to happen in the next few weeks for you to tell them, okay, it's okay for them to come back to South Africa? Very briefly, please, Daniel.
Unfortunately, the government doesn't have a clear agenda or a clear program. It's very hard for us to tell people in the few weeks to come back because up to date, people have been killed. Even last night, people have been killed.
Okay.
So
that's not true.
And most of the people who are doing this thing,
Daniel,
given the
Daniel,
go ahead by the
I'm going to take your microphone down now because we're completely out of time.
To
Bo,
protect the sovereignty
Daniel,
of the country,
and Dewa,
so the government
listen, gentlemen,
sort out
I
this.
thank you very much for joining us here on the Newsmakers. We're completely out of time. We'll continue next time. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us.
What's making an impact online? What has people sharing and discussing and debating? All the stories from around the web.